Sleep. We should be spending about a third of our lives asleep, and yet many of us struggle to get anywhere near that much. Lots of you have spoken to me about feeling tired but wired. And then there's this thing about being a night owl or a morning lark, and I've heard mixed opinions about whether that's even a thing. So I decided it was time to bring on a sleep expert and ask all about these things and more, and that's what this episode is all about. It's a fascinating topic. I'm sure you're going to love this episode and have plenty of takeaways. Hey there. Welcome to the Burnout Isn't Necessary podcast, where we delve into the world of stress, burnout, and the science behind it all. Over a decade ago, I faced burnout as a management consultant, experiencing an emptiness that I wouldn't wish on anyone. But here's the truth. My burnout wasn't necessary, and it's not necessary for you either. I'm Hannah Holden, and together with my amazing guests, we share our real-life experiences with stress and burnout. We explore the science behind stress, offering practical tips to help you navigate those challenging moments in life. Our goal? To empower you to prevent burnout from taking over your life. I am passionate about stress mastery and preventing burnout, and I am here to guide you to a more balanced, fulfilling life. So let's go. Burnout isn't necessary, and I'm here to show you why. So, welcome back to the Burnout Isn't Necessary podcast. When I speak to people about how stress impacts their lives and what they would really like to improve, there's one area that keeps coming up, and that's sleep. So I decided to seek out a sleep expert to come and join me on the podcast to give us some insights, the insights that you're all looking for, because I don't necessarily have the answers when it comes to sleep. And that expert is Carolina Ramuski. Hopefully I've pronounced that right.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Carolina is the founder of the Primordial Sleep Lab. She helps busy professionals achieve restful sleep and optimize health and wellness through ancestral knowledge, technology, and biohacking. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's exciting.
So where I wanted to start was, of all the topics that you could specialize in, why sleep? What's made you so passionate about sleep?
I think I've always been very passionate about neuroscience in general and the brain. I find it fascinating. And my graduation is actually nutrition, naturopathic nutrition. And I started, working mainly with men, funnily enough. I had most of my clients were men. But then when pandemic came, I was really, I saw a lot of people around me were having a lot of trouble with sleep. And I remember talking to a few people, and I already knew so much about it because I was just so interested in it and like how you worked and how fascinating and how much most of us didn't know a lot about it, because all this sleep research and everything is quite new. Like before, it's now is emerging a lot more. And I think especially after the pandemic, and I think with the pandemic, with all the anxiety, everything that created, all the uncertainty, there's a lot of people who had problems sleep. And we have an epidemic of sleep deprivation in the world. It's more like a pandemic. It's crazy, like the amount of people who suffers with sleep. So then I remember once speaking to a friend who was having trouble sleeping. I'm kind of giving him some tips, and he's like, you should be like a work with sleep because you know so much and you're so passionate about it. Then you should. And then I was like, something clicked. And then I started just doing a lot of research, and I did a few courses on sleep, especially Matthew Walker was the main sleep researcher that I started learning from first, and read his book, Why We Sleep, which I think everyone should read. It's very interesting.
Why We Sleep?
Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. It's really interesting. I mean, it's very science-based, and I know there's a lot of people who say, it's fear-mongering, blah, blah, blah. But I think it's information. You take how you want it, it is a little bit, lots of people go, oh my God, but the effects are there, and it's truth. Unfortunately, truth is not always pleasant. And it's really, so that's when it started. So I started in 2020, I started really doing my own research, and just, because I was already a health coach and, helping people with their health in general. So I just decided to focus on sleep, because the more I learned about sleep, I learned that sleep is actually the foundation of health. When I did my nutrition degree, I will learn that you have the 4 pillars of health, which was sleep and nutrition and exercise and mindset and emotion stuff. But then the more I understood about sleep, it's actually the foundation, because sleep has the power to break or make every single system in the body, like everything. It's I don't know, it's just amazing how his one simple thing that everybody actually have to do it governs everything in your body. So that's why it started for me, basically.
Interesting. And when you were saying that people find the book a bit scary, I assume you mean it's because of the breadth of impact that sleep has on our life. You were just expecting it. Yeah. Okay. And so let's talk about the importance of sleep and the impact of poor sleep, and then let's get into some of the reasons that so many of us have this. Well, you were referring to a sleep pandemic there. So what's that?
I think it's a mixture of things. So basically, well, sleep, like I said, impacts every single area of your body, like every system in the body. And therefore, the lack of sleep, generate cascades and cascades of different things. And mental health, especially, like our brain, this is when we sleep is when our brain restores, when our body restores, and it's very important. So if we're not having enough of sleep, all these systems are impacted, then you can't be functioning in a way that you're meant to. I mean, everybody functions because the body is amazing, right? If I always think about like drug addicts, for example, they take drugs for so long, they're just kind of punishing the body, but the body is there, it's trying to keep the balance, it's trying to keep alive, and it's trying to do everything. And it's the same, our body is always going to, like people who say, oh, I sleep 5 hours and I'm fine. You're fine because your body is trying to keep you fine, but in reality, you're not fine. And with sleep, the consequences comes more later in life. So, things like Alzheimer's and Parkinson, dementia, all of those things are all consequences of not just, but are also consequences of not having the adequate sleep that you need. And I don't talk about just the quantity, because it's important, but it's not equal for everyone. But also the quality is having your deep sleep and your REM sleep and your light sleep. All these stages of sleep are very important for our well-being and for restoration. Each of them works in a different part. And basically, let's go back to the basics. So in sleep, you have 4 to 5 sleep cycles every night. They tend to last 90 minutes, more or less. Everyone is different. We are all different, but this is like mainly. And then you have deep sleep. Deep sleep is the physical restoration. So it restores your body physically. It consolidates all your memory, get everything that you learned through your senses throughout the day. It gets everything together in a bundle. And then REM sleep is your emotional and mental restoration. And this distributes all the memories to the right places. So think about like a filing cabinet. It kind of goes and distributing everything to the right folder and associating with the memories that you already have. This is one of the theories of dream. That's why you dream in REM sleep, is because your brain is kind of putting together all the things in the right places. So then when you don't have enough quality, you don't have enough deep sleep or enough REM sleep, then that's when you feel tired, you're physically tired, or you're mentally tired, irritated, mood swings. I mean, it affects every single area, especially the mental. And then deep sleep normally happens in the first half of the night. So usually from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., sorry. It's when deep sleep is mainly happening. It's not that you don't have anymore, but it just increases. This time is when mostly happen. And then REM sleep mostly happens in the morning, like so the later part of the night. Okay. So some people who, for example, the 5 a.m. club thing, if you're not a morning person, is actually detrimental to you, because if you're waking up too early before you're meant to wake up, you're losing a lot of REM sleep. And so each cycle you go through all the phases, but they increase in time as you go on the night. So for example, in the first sleep cycle, you might have, 5 seconds of REM sleep, but by the end of the night, almost morning, you might have half an hour of deep sleep or REM sleep. So it's increases as the night goes on, and with deep sleep is the first bit is more and then decreases as we go on. So it's very important to, pay attention to the quality. And this is how the only way, one of the only ways to know is how you feel.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you, how do you know? What do you think about lots of people wear, like the watches and everything that tracks how what do you think of those?
I really like them, but it's not for everyone. I mean, I like technology. I think it's useful. I wear them. I have the Oura Ring. Actually, I'm having 3 at the moment because I'm testing them. So I have the Oura Ring, and I have the Fitbit, and I have the Whoop strap. Just because I'm testing them, and you don't have to have so many. Just one is enough.
Yeah.
They are very useful in understanding your body, and I think I always say this: our body is one of the only things that we are born with and we die with, and most of us know nothing about it. We don't know what to feed us. We don't know how to manage our emotions. We don't know how our body works. We always kind of giving away our things like to doctors, to someone, not that doctors are not useful, they are, but I'm just saying that you should know how your body works. And we're all different. We're all bio individuals. What works for some people will not work for other people. And the same technique might be used for different people, and some people will thrive with it and some people will not, because we're different, and the reaction of our bodies is different. So I think the main thing that I try to teach people is how to understand your own body. Only you can do it. Only you feel what you feel. Nobody can do that for you. So if you don't understand, if you don't learn about your own body, how it works, if you're not aware of what's going on, then it's hard to change, right? It's difficult to manage anything. So I think tracking is a good thing if you don't get obsessed with it.
Yeah.
Because, it can happen to some people. Some people get really obsessed and then it kind of goes the other way. And that's not what you want.
Yeah. No, there's no point in it becoming something that you worry about, because then all it's ever going to be is detrimental.
Exactly.
We don't want you waking up in the middle of the night worrying about whether or not you've had any sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
So you were talking about how we're all different. Let's talk about
Yeah.
the concept of night owls and early birds that people talk about. And I know that lots of people believe that they sit in one or other camp. And I've also heard something about research where they've taken people who thought they were night owls away from artificial light and taken them off to go camp in the middle of nowhere. And they very quickly adjust their sleep-wake cycle to be far more early bird than they ever thought they were. And so there is an idea that actually this idea of of night owls is actually nonsense, and that we're all the same, but that we're influenced by artificial light. So what are your thoughts on, do they exist?
Yeah.
On it?
Yeah, they do exist, actually. It's a genetic predisposition. So it's something that you're born with, you can't change. But it's not as people think of it. So the actual term is called your chronotype, which is your genetic predisposition of being a morning person, an evening person, or somewhere in between. So we call the morning larks, the night owls, and the hummingbirds. So hummingbirds are 50% of the population. These are the middle 95 people, the normal, wake up with the sun and go to sleep with the night, very in sync with the nature's normal rhythm. And this is 50% of the population. 15% of the population are morning larks, and 15% of the population are night owls. And you can do that. You can discover that by doing a genetic test. Is the most accurate one. But there's also other ways of finding. I have a little quiz that you can take, and then you can see more or less what you are. And it's all to do with your preferences, basically. And you have questions like, oh, if a friend invited you to do a workout, what time would you want it to do this workout? Would you prefer to be very early in the morning? Would you prefer to be like midday or in the evening, and the things? But then also our environment nowadays, with the light, is 100% true. So there's a lot of people who would think they are night owls, but they're not actually, because of our environment, because of our habits, because of our world that is completely darkness deprived, and now all the technology that of phones and everything else. So there is a little bit of truth to that. It is related to your environment and everything, but you do have a genetic predisposition of being one or the other. Even when you are a hummingbird, you still have tendencies to be like more evening, more morning. So it really, they are that, because you're all different. And I think the chronotypes exist because when we were cavemen and we lived in groups, there was no, and we lived outside in the jungle, there was, danger. So there was no, if everybody slept at the same time, there would be too much of a long window where everyone would be vulnerable to predators. So that's why there were the people who would wake up really early, like 4 or 5 a.m. And then there would people that would go to bed later, 12, 1. But that's not that. Like, night owls should not go to bed at 3 a.m. This is not what it is. It's basically just go a little bit later than normal. The normal would be 9, 10, 11. Night owls would go 11, 12, 1. That's it. But it's not like a huge shift where we think that, I'm a night owl, so I stay awake until 3, 4 a.m. No, this is not the right thing to do, because then in the end you need to. And it varies with our age. It changes with our age. When we are babies, if you see, like, all babies are morning person. They all in the morning, they wake up really early and they go to sleep early. Babies are like that. And then the teenage years is the opposite. We go into night owl mode. So children, teenagers really suffer with school times, and it's not because they're being lazy. And I know a lot of people think, oh, my teenage doesn't want to go to bed early. He genetically can't. It's really difficult for them to go to sleep really early and also to wake up really early. So that's why they're groggy. They can't do it. And in school times is just like a nightmare for them. And then when you get to your 20s, this is when you kind of settle into your chronotype. And this is when you probably know, like, if you're a morning person, evening person, or somewhere in between. Most of us are somewhere in between with tendencies to be one or the other. And they are true night owls and true early risers.
Interesting. I'm intrigued. So you said that you've got a quiz that people can do.
Yes.
Okay, great. So should we include the link to that? I assume it's a link to that. Okay, we'll put that in the show notes. Perfect.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, maybe all those teenagers were supposed to do the late shift.
Yes.
I get approached multiple times a week by people telling me how they could help me improve the podcast. They talk about improving the audio quality, improving the editing quality, improving the listening experience, and also improving the listener numbers. And this feedback all sounds fantastic. So I'm now looking to raise funds to make some of these improvements, which is why I'm introducing some affiliate brands to the podcast. When you buy from these brands, I will receive a commission, and my intention is to directly invest that back into the podcast to make those improvements. So today, I would like to introduce a brand called Ekotex. As you will know from listening to this podcast, I am a yoga practitioner, a teacher, a yoga enthusiast, and Ekotex, which is spelled Ekotex, is a brand that is dedicated to creating naturally beautiful, ethical, and durable yoga equipment. So yoga mats and yoga props. And they're based in Scotland. They design their products to support you as the practitioner and also to support the planet in the process. And they now make a lot of their products locally in the UK, and if not, then in Europe. I use their equipment in my personal practice and also when I'm teaching. I think they offer fantastic value for money and great quality. And of course, also the peace of mind that these are eco-friendly products. So if you're interested in getting yoga equipment, I highly recommend them. And you can check out their products by clicking the link that I've included in the show notes. If you've got questions like whether or not you should be using a block for something or a bolster for something, then I am more than happy to help you with any questions that you have. So just drop me an email. And maybe put something like yoga equipment in the title, and I'll get back to you with my guidance. So thank you for your support with this. Thank you for supporting the podcast. I hope that you love the Ekotex products as much as I do. And now let's get back to the conversation. What about this concept? So lots of people talk about being tired but wired. And I think that especially when they're stressed. And So obviously this audience, we talk about burnout, we talk about stress. So that's going to be relevant to a lot of people who are listening. So what's that phenomenon about and what can we do about it?
This is more related to your cortisol levels. So basically, when our cortisol is meant, it's timed with our circadian rhythms, right? So usually cortisol is really high in the morning to help you wake up. Cortisol and adrenaline rises in the morning when you're meant to wake up. So then you kind of wake up, and then it's not meant to be high in the evening. So it kind of gradually slows down during the day, and then for the night it should be really low and you shouldn't be having it. However, when we are in a state of stress, especially prolonged stress, these cortisol cycles get so mixed up. So instead of having no cortisol in the night, you sometimes have cortisol, especially people who wake up like 3 a.m. on a regular basis. This means instead of getting your cortisol to start getting up at 6, 7 a.m., it's coming earlier. So it's 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and that's why people wake up and they're wired. It's all to do with your stress response, your body response. And then obviously stress will impact your sleep and your sleep quality and generate all this cascade. So people are tired because they need to sleep and because they had a day full of activities and doing things, but they can't because their cortisol is too high. So it's important to make sure, first understand how your stress responses are, which is what you do, which is great. But I think one of the things that are really helpful for lowering cortisol is grounding. Grounding has just putting your feet on the sand or on the grass, on the earth, anywhere. Studies say that even you move from the sympathetic nervous system to parasympathetic nervous system in 5 seconds when you have your feet grounded. So it's really crazy, it's really quick, and then doing that constantly is. So the ancestral knowledge that I talk about is going back to your roots, going back to being in nature and have this more contact, because we live in cities. Most of us, we've lost this connection. And if anybody goes on holiday and they have this contact again, stress levels go down, everything, because you're in nature, because you're syncing your circadian rhythm, the light, everything. It's very interesting. And also another thing that I find really useful is journaling before bed. Journaling before bed is really helpful because then you get all the stress from your own anxiety and you put it down somewhere and you can deal that with later. I like to do lists. So basically what's going on? Okay, what can I do about it? When can I do when can I resolve this? So then this way you sort of kind of taking it away from the head and then moving it, you're dealing, when you're going to do it, don't have to worry about too much.
That I haven't ever talked about or even practiced this myself, the journaling before bed when stressed, but I have when I've been in that tired but wired state and I find myself awake in the middle of the night. My go-to is a piece of paper and a pen and just write down everything that's on my mind, and then it can switch off and I don't need to have it keep continuing on the loop. And normally, if I am really stressed, then I will go back to that list and keep adding to it as these other things come up. But then I'll find that after a period of doing that and nearly getting to sleep and having this other idea and adding that, after it does work for me. So I do think it's really impactful. Let's go back to grounding. So I'm familiar with it, but it's not something we've ever spoken about on the podcast before. So can you describe a bit more about what that is? What do you mean when you say grounding? Why is it that it works in the way that you've said? You said that it can have an effect in 5 seconds. What is it that's happening?
So basically grounding is having your hands or your feet touching the earth, either sand or grass or even earth in itself, even hugging a tree, like they say. Things like the electromagnetic field from the earth has this huge impact on your body. So there's many studies on it, especially if you look into quantum biology. It's very, very impressive, everything, the results of it. And it's basically you're just connecting to the earth electromagnetic field, and it has this instant impact of calming your system down. And anything nowadays they have these grounding shoes. I'm not sure how effective they are, but I've come across a few grounding mats where people sleep on these grounding mats, and apparently has the same sort of effect. But I think I feel it every time. I try to kind of ground regularly. I know, I mean, we live in England. It's not very warm, and you can, especially now, like now we're getting to the good weather part. But even in the winter, like if you have the opportunity to just have your shoes off a little bit and just walk barefooted, has already a huge impact. So I think just trying to connect to earth, basically, just really being in nature walks, touching something, rocks, even rocks down on the floor, you can touch them. This all has some sort of effect on your nervous system, and it's just fascinating to me, and I feel it, at least, like I think obviously everyone has a different experience. You're not gonna, it's how can I say, it's not like obviously there are scientific evidence for it, but I think it's more like of a personal thing that you have to experience and see. Like if you're really stressed, I guess, like at least for me, like if I'm really stressed, going for a walk, especially if you're in a park somewhere that you can see nature, it changes, and your breathing as well, like everything is sort of connected. And when you can kind of disconnect from everything else and connect with nature, I think it has a huge impact on your sleep and your health in general.
Yeah, agreed. I agree with you on a couple of accounts. So yes, and there's research, like you said, about being in nature, and there's even been research on going for counselling or coaching in nature whilst walking. That is actually more impactful. And I've spoken to practitioners who use that, who also find that those clients make progress quicker and generally need less sessions. So that's really interesting. Yeah. And then on the grounding, yes, on a personal level, yes, I definitely notice it too. I'm not a big fan of taking my shoes off in the freezing cold, like you said. I'm just like my fingers and my toes spend most of their life cold, and the idea of exposing them doesn't really excite me. So I do use grounding products, but I know that they're not supposed to work quite to the extent that going out and putting your feet on the ground will work. And I don't really know if they do work, but I figured no harm done.
Exactly.
So this is, for anybody who's watching, then this is a grounding mat. I've got that on there.
Perfect.
And yeah, we've got a grounding sheet which has like tiny silver wires running through it. And what you do is you plug that into the wall, and that is connected to an earth, because your building will be earth. So for anybody who's interested, that's how it works. Whether or not it works, whether or not it makes a difference, I don't know, but I just figured no harm done in trying.
Exactly.
All right, we've already touched on one of my questions, which was about, like, is all sleep equal? But let's move on to, so your LinkedIn profile says that you help people achieve better sleep through ancestral knowledge, technology, and biohacking. And each of those sounds really fascinating. So let's start with ancestral knowledge. Sure. What is it, and how is it relevant to sleep?
So ancestral knowledge is basically you going back. I base my practice a lot of evolutionary psychology, evolutionary biology, and how we evolved to be as species, And I think going back, like if you think about our caveman ancestors and how they lived, it's very interesting. And I think we can nowadays, because we've moved so far from it, is a good thing and is a bad thing, I guess. But I think kind of going back and to even like to our grandparents' time, it was a lot different. Even 50 years ago, we didn't have the level of disease we have now. Our food was different. Our environments were different. Everything was different. So I like the idea of kind of, even though I like technology, I like the idea of stripping away from it when it's time to recharge, when it's time to, obviously I will use the odd technology, the trackers and everything, but like lighting is super important. We live in a society that is completely darkness deprived. Melatonin, which is the sleep hormone, is activated by darkness, and a lot of people are completely, using the phones up into when in bed and all of this. Not just the light is impacting your sleep, but also the content of the things that you're engaging with can leave your brain super wired, can leave you highly, alert, and these kind of things are very detrimental to you. And I think, so ancestral knowledge is thinking about what did my grandparents do? What did they? How did they live? Where do I come from? Where are my ancestry from? Especially with food, and say you're from Greece, like what your parents are from Greece, your grandparents are from Greece. What did they eat? What sort of diet were they eating? Like, where is your ancestry from? And I think it's nice to kind of go back to that and reclaim your roots in a way, if that makes sense. Sort of just using that as your guide to kind of live your life in a way. And then I think biohacking for me is not just about optimizing your body, it's a lot about learning about yourself, like learning how you work, what makes you what makes you, how do you control your emotions? How do you deal with stress? How do you deal with your life's challenges? And what feeds your body? Like, what is good for you? But the only way of knowing all this is by experimenting. So that's why biohacking for me is so important, because you need to learn and you need to experiment. Like I said earlier, we're all different. One thing will not work for everyone, and it's not like one size fits all. You need to test, and that's the only way of knowing. There's no other way.
And so what kind of things would you be testing? Like, are we talking about vitamin and mineral supplements, or what kind of things?
No, testing in the sense of trying things for yourself. For example, you can try different diets, see what works for you. Eating this, eating that, like, how does this make me feel? And the ultimate way of knowing is how you feel, right? That's and kind of taking notes on yourself and learning how, okay, I'm a nutritionist in the beginning, before being anything else. So, I eat this. How do I feel 2 hours after I've eaten? Does this give me gas? Does this give me bloating? Does this makes me feel energetic? Does this make me feel lethargic? Like these kind of things, learning what makes your body feel good. Okay, I need to sleep. Everyone needs different time, but adults, we need between 7 to 9 hours of sleep. If you're sleeping anywhere less than 7, it's not ideal. Some people will work, you function because your body is amazing and you make you function, but it's not ideal. And then see how you feel. Some people will need 7 hours. Some people need 9 hours. I for sure need more, 8.5 hours is my ideal for me to feel completely engaged and happy. And then see how you wake up in the morning. Do you need coffee to keep you going? Is it coffee just a habit, or do you actually need it? If you've had quality sleep, you don't really need the coffee. You know what I mean? To keep you going. How is your mood? How is your mood when you wake up? Like, do you feel? So at the same time that I like to have the trackers, I also have a manual sleep tracking that I use with my clients, and just like how you're feeling. Like, ask yourself these questions and actually see for yourself. Like, okay, this makes me feel good. This doesn't make me feel good. If I have too much of this, like, doesn't work. If I have too little of these, doesn't work. So it's kind of you testing on yourself and trying different things and trying. I'm not a huge fan of using lots of supplements. I think it's not. I mean, it's good for some people, and if you're lacking, and I don't disregard anything, to be honest. I think everything is sort of valid, but I don't think we should be relying on it, especially nowadays because our soil is not the best with minerals and nutrients. So it's a little bit tricky, but at the same time, like, there's so many other things that you can do naturally just to improve your health in so many ways, like viewing bright light in the morning. Like, you wanna set your circadian rhythm. You have, like, for you to have a nice sleep cycle, you have to be in sync with your circadian rhythm. The best way to sync with your circadian rhythm: view bright light from the daylight as soon as you wake up, before you see screen time. Go outside, even if it's cloudy, even if it's winter. The lux of that light is stronger than anything. So it's already enough. Like, it doesn't have to be a sunny day. Even when it's cloudy, the sun is strong enough behind the clouds to set up your circadian rhythm. And your circadian rhythm is direct. We have our suprachiasmatic nucleus in our brain. That's where is your biological clock. So it's activated by light. All our all our organs have biological clocks, but your main one, which is on your brain, is activated by light, and all your organ clocks, they're activated by food. So the timing that you eat, like time is everything. So it's very interesting. Actually, there's a really interesting book. Have you ever heard of Dr. Michael Bruce?
No, I don't think so.
He's an American. He's the sleep doctor in America. He's quite famous for that, and he has a book called The Power of When,
Okay.
which is very interesting. It's about all of that, like the timing that you do things and how that impacts your system and your circadian rhythm. And your circadian rhythm is everything. So if you're in sync with your circadian rhythm, it's much easier for you to go to sleep and wake up. And a way of doing that is consistency. Like you have to have a consistent sleep time and wake time every day of the week, not just during the weekdays, weekends as well. Because what happens, there's a lot of people nowadays who are living in social jet lag. That's what we call. Have you ever heard of this term?
I think I know what you mean by the term social jet lag. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it's because everybody's sleeping, going like have hectic routines, and every day is different, and our brains really love regularity. So the thing is, like when you have a regular sleep and wake time, your brain knows exactly how to use that time to optimize your sleep cycles, and that's what gives you quality of sleep. So the best way to improve the quality of sleep is having a regular sleep schedule. And then that means every day. And even if in the weekend, obviously you want, and the regularity, I mean, you can shift that like an hour, say 1 hour less, 1 hour more, but not much more than that. And take naps during the day. If that doesn't, unless you have insomnia that really affects your sleep in the night, I wouldn't recommend taking a nap for people who suffer with insomnia or have, I mean, if they have early in the day and doesn't impact, all you have to know is if it's impacting your sleep at night. If it's not, super recommended, I think. And also when you're napping, you need to do it right. So naps should be short, half an hour max. You shouldn't be having more than that. And usually before 3 p.m. Between 10 and 3 p.m. is the ideal time of having a nap, because then it's usually less likely to impact your sleep in the night. And then it just gives you a boost of energy when you do a nap. That is right. And, like in the weekends, I usually take a nap because I'm going to wake up early, because I wake up early every day. So, I'll take a nap. If I'm feeling tired, I'll take a nap. And it's not every weekend, but some weekends I'll do it. And I think it's really helpful, and I think it's really healthy as well.
So you're recommending a nap rather than a lie-in. So consistency with the get up at the regular time that you would. Yeah. But if you feel tired, then
take a nap.
Catch up through naps rather than by changing your wake up time. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So you mentioned caffeine. What are your thoughts on caffeine?
I think caffeine is good. I think caffeine, the problem with caffeine is timing and dosage. And also they have different sensitivities and tolerance to caffeine. So you need to sort of understand how you react. One tip that I give to people is delaying your caffeine. So basically, when we wake up, like I said earlier, cortisol and adrenaline is high, right? Because that's the hormones that help you to wake up. So if you have a coffee as soon as you wake up, you're not going to feel the alertness boost that you're looking for. But so after 1 hour and a half after you've waken up, cortisol and adrenaline are going down. And then if you have caffeine, then you get the boost that you wanted.
That's really interesting. My husband is I can't do anything until I've had my coffee, more kind of.
Probably it's more like a habit thing, most people. But if he tries to do that, then he'll see the difference. Is a lot of you feel the difference, because then basically you're just wasting your caffeine because your cortisol adrenaline is already high. So then it's not going to have as much of an impact as you want. So delaying it is a lot more useful, I think. But like I said, it's all to do with the dosage. How much coffee are you having? You need to find out how tolerant and how sensitive to caffeine you are. You can do genetic testing to find out about that. And everyone is different. I only started drinking coffee 2 years ago. I've never drunk coffee before in my life because I didn't like the taste. That's the truth. But then I have with a little bit of cream, and I really enjoy it now. So I do have one cup of coffee a day.
That's interesting. I gave up coffee years ago.
Yeah.
Coffee, but not all caffeine. I have tea.
Yeah.
What about alcohol? Are you going to
Uh-huh.
be? Yes. Are you going to be as flexible with us on alcohol?
No.
Well, that
I mean,
one coming.
I think, like with everything in life, you have to be flexible with yourself. But it's important to know the impact, and then you can take an informed decision for yourself, right? For example, I enjoy a glass of wine, and I don't think it's a horrible thing. But I know that even one drink will impact the quality of my sleep. Unfortunately, it's really sad. We think that alcohol is great, and the thing is, there's a lot of people who think, oh, I have a nightcap that will help me sleep. But the truth is, alcohol is a sedative. It doesn't really help you sleep in the sense that you have good sleep. It sedates you, and obviously you go to sleep, but impacts the quality of sleep. So you get very, what is the word, fragmented sleep when you drink alcohol, especially your deep sleep. It gets really fragmented. And I know, like, not sure you, but I've experienced, like, if I properly drink and get drunk and this kind of things, no matter how long I sleep after, I cannot sleep well. Like, I'll keep waking up. And the truth is, we all wake up many times in the night. Most of us don't remember. So every time you change your sleep cycle, you wake up. But most of it doesn't, you don't, most of us don't remember them. And you can take like up to 1 hour sometimes, some nights of wake time. So adding up all the little times that you woke up through the night. And that's not a bad thing per se. Obviously, the less you wake up, the better, the more quality you have. But it's natural to wake up many, many times in the night. The problem is when this is so frequent that you remember all of them, and then it's hard going. And normally when you wake up, you go back to sleep straight away, right? The problem is when we wake up and then we can't go back to sleep, and then the cycle started ruminating, and then everything starts, and then that's the problem. Is this what affects your quality? But unfortunately, alcohol will do that, to fragment your sleep, and it's very detrimental for your deep sleep, especially.
Yes.
But then again, you have your choice. Like, you have free will. You have, when you know that, if you still want to drink, you know what I mean. I don't think everyone. I mean, life happens. It's the same with the schedule. I'm very regular, but sometimes there will be, like, I have a friend over from visiting from a different place. We want to stay up late. I'm going to do it because I know the next day maybe I'm not going to have as good of a day if I don't sleep enough. But then I can always catch up. You can always do other things. Although catching up on sleep doesn't really happen in that sense that you have a long sleep that you can't kind of repay this debt. You can catch up on the day, like having a nap and these kind of things, if that makes sense.
Okay, I'm gonna wrap us up in a moment. So one of the things that I was going to ask you finally was your biggest tips, but I think you've given them to us. So consistency in sleep wake times, and if you feel that you need extra sleep, have a nap rather than a lie-in. You were saying bright light as soon as possible when you get up, to try and use that to set your circadian clock. And then when we talked about stress, one of your big tips was journaling before bed. I think that's a great idea, because I've used that in the middle of the night, but perhaps if I'd done it before I went to bed, I wouldn't have been there in the middle of the night doing it. Right? I love that. Was there anything final that you wanted to share with everybody? Any extra tips that you wanted to include before we wrap up?
Another thing, apart from waking up and having light, is having a big cup of water. We can lose up to 1 liter of water just by breathing every night. So most of us wake up dehydrated. So it's very important before your coffee, and coffee also dehydrates us. So important to drink water. This will keep you alert as well. In the night, avoiding bright lights, of course. Ideally, you have candle lights all over your house. But even having like orange light or like a warmer light in your house is better, because you need the darkness to activate your melatonin.
Mm-hmm.
And I think having a sleep hygiene, having a little sleep routine like we have with our kids, like your kids will have dinner and then they'll have a bath, they'll have story time, and they go to bed. We should be doing the same similar thing to ourselves. Having a warm bath before, or a warm shower before bed, helps you fall asleep because it decreases your core body temperature. And I use this hour, say the power down hour, where you take 1 hour before bed. If people don't have 1 hour, half an hour, doesn't matter how long you have, but usually like an hour. And then I divide it in 3 parts, usually 20 minutes, but you play whatever you do. And then the first part I use for getting things ready. So preparation. So things that you need ready for in the morning, finishing up. If you have pets, like feeding your pets, doing the pet care, or, cleaning the kitchen, whatever. Take this first minutes to clear up and get everything that would bring you anxiety in the morning, that you don't have to be rushing. Like if you say, get your bag ready, get stuff prepared, whatever. And then hygiene, that you do your teeth, have a shower, skincare, whatever you do. And then the last one is relaxation. So you do journaling, you do reading, you do listening to music, meditation, yoga, whatever makes you relaxed just before bed. So you're not using your device, and my device is turned off, because I've learned that even with the airplane mode, you can still get EMF. So I just turn it off now. Out of the room, and just doing something that relaxes you, prepares your body to go to sleep, basically. Because unfortunately, obviously, most good sleepers, they just go to bed and sleep. But it's important to, because we have such busy lives, it's important to wind down and just prepare your body for sleep. So I think this is it, and just getting, doing the things that you love, engage in doing things that I love to do. I do a lot of sauna, and I think sauna is such a good thing to have my me time. Let's say it's the time that I have a portable sauna in my house, so
Wow.
you just sort of you have that. Sauna is amazing for your body anyway, for your immune system and for everything, and for sleeping, obviously. And then just having time to like meditate, listen to something that you enjoy, doing things that we enjoy just makes our life so much better. So I think engaging the last minutes before bed, doing something that you like, it's good.
Lovely tips. Lots of things for people to take away. Thank you. You are clearly very passionate about sleep and also very knowledgeable. So thanks so much for sharing all of that with us.
No, thank you. I'm really happy that you invited me. It's always, like I said, I love talking about it. So any opportunity that I have, and if I can help even one person just improve their sleep, I'm a happy person. So that's our mission. Thank you.
And if you've enjoyed listening today, then please do review the podcast. And if there should be the ability to add comments, if you've got feedback, or even if you've got questions, I'll make sure that Carolina gets those questions and we get back to you. So thanks so much, Carolina, and thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, Anna.
And before we go, if you wanted to find out more about what Carolina does, then you'll find her on her website at www.primordialhealth.co.uk, or you can email her, and that's carolina@primordialhealth.co.uk. I'll include both of these in the show notes, along with the link to her chronotype quiz. So that's the quiz to find out whether you're a night owl or a morning lark or a hummingbird, and also her LinkedIn profile in the show notes. Thanks. Thank you for being part of Burnout Isn't Necessary. Our aim is to assist you in navigating stress and preventing burnout. If you found our conversations valuable, please consider subscribing and taking a moment to rate the podcast. Your feedback is essential. I want to hear from you. If you have questions or ideas for future episodes, share them with me. Your input can shape the content that we create. A common question I receive is where to start in managing stress, and everything starts with awareness. Stress impacts each of us in a unique way, and some stress symptoms can seem a little random, so I've created a checklist of symptoms to help you better understand how stress shows up for you. There's a link in the show notes. And a quick reminder, this podcast is presented for educational and entertainment purposes only. It's not a substitute for professional advice. Stay tuned for more episodes, and until next time, take care of yourself.